Today we're looking at parts 2 and 3 of an IELTS speaking test that I've found online through a friend. And the part 2 says to describe a time when you remember looking at the sky either by day or by night. And you should say where, what, and explain. So I'll begin by answering questions I'll begin by responding to this prompt, and I'm looking at my wristwatch here, and I'll see that I have a 2 minute speech. When I was a young child, I lived in a very small town, and with my mom, we would go outside in the evening with our sleeping bag, and there was a hill behind the house where we could put the sleeping bag out and lie under the stars. So we'd go out before it got dark because I was a kid, and kids, as usual, are a little bit nervous about being outside at nighttime. But it was fun to be there with my mom, who had a book, and we would use the book to identify constellations. So this was an activity that I know she was learning from, but her intention was also to teach me about constellations, and she knew some of the stories behind them as well. So she's an English teacher, as am I, and she has studied mythology. So she could tell some of the um, myths from which the names of the constellations come. And we would do our best to identify the ones that were easy to see, and on some nights it was much easier than others. I got good at identifying the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper and Orion and the constellation there with the bow and arrow and the North Star. These constellations are still visible, and on a night where it's not there's not too much light pollution, I can still identify them. But I haven't been in a rural place like that with such great visibility of the sky for quite a long time. It was really unique at that time when we were in a clearing and on a hill. So that was very special. All right, so that's a 2 minute speech, and I'll move on to part 3. There are three subtopics here, and this part, again, I've mentioned it in previous posts about part 3. It's very important to give responses that will demonstrate the score that you're aiming for. So if you want a part 9, you need to speak with good cohesion, good organization, respond directly to the question, use good vocabulary that will demonstrate your fluency and your ability to think quickly in English. So this could be 5 to 10 minutes. I've been reminded by a friend that the speaking test is about 15 to 20 minutes, the maximum being 20 minutes. And I had always thought that just the first part is 5, the second part is 3 to 4 minutes, and part 3 is 5. But it could be up to 10 minutes for the examiner to really hammer out that upper score if they want to push you to demonstrate more language. So now, beginning with the topic learning about the stars and planets. Do you think all children should learn about stars and planets at school? Why or why not? In my opinion, I think learning about the solar system and aspects of the universe is very important for children from a young age. I think children find it fascinating, especially because the new photography of planets and stars with the great telescopes and satellites that are used today provides such interesting pictures to study from. Going into a planetarium is a really awesome experience, and I think that it's very enjoyable. There are many lessons that can be learned related to science, physics, math, and I think the aspect of our solar system, being that we are on a planet traveling around the sun, which provides us and plants energy with which we live, is very important to understand. And there are many lessons that can be learned from that. Why do some people spend a lot of time studying the stars? There are many reasons. Some have to do with studying stars as a hobby. In fact, stars come and go over time. They have a lifespan that um, is beyond our lifetime, but the fact that they are so far away means that when stars disappear or appear, it actually has happened a far uh, time in the past. So that aspect alone is very interesting, and that someone can learn to identify stars as they come into existence in our view, from our perspective on Earth, is very interesting, I think, to some people, amateurs and professionals alike. And then beyond that, to identify constellations as a life skill, because it is a survival skill to be able to read the sky at night and to be able to use what you see in the sky to direct your course if you're in a situation that requires navigating using the stars. For instance, at sea, or if for some reason a person ended up in the wilderness and they needed to know the direction um, beyond being able to read the sun passing overhead. Let's see. Next question. How does technology help ordinary people learn about the stars? Well, there are all sorts of technologies that help us. Print media is the basic one. I think anybody can pick up a book and you could say print media is technology. There are other things, of course, telescopes, as I said, planetariums. Well, I'll take it back. Planetarium allows us to see a presentation. It's what are the buildings that have the telescopes inside? I'm at a loss for words at the moment, but yes, great big telescopes that allow us to see in great detail stars and planets. So those technologies that use magnifying glasses and scopes help us view the stars and learn about stars. Stars that are binary, stars that are exploding. A supernova, for instance, can be seen in great detail in that way. Onto stars and planets and culture. Does reading about the stars and planets help to develop children's imagination? This, I think, is certainly true, and our interest individually and as a society in the stars has created many great stories in the past. So yes, absolutely. I think as children, when we are learning to understand the world outside of our small community, it is a very, very powerful experience to begin to learn about what actually happens at the level of the solar system, the galaxy, and the universe. It's a quite powerful thing, and to use your brain to try to understand how it's possible and explore questions like where life has come from is a very, very difficult thing that requires a very good imagination. Yes. Why do you think films about stars, planets, and space are so popular? I have seen many good movies, some old and some newer ones that explore aspect of space travel, and that as the as science fiction, it is entertainment, and because it takes you out of your life, it suspends disbelief. It's very entertaining. I think the stories that make us understand life in a different way are also very powerful. And so, because Science fiction uses technology like spaceships and space travel to tell a story that also has a dramatic element or uh, suspense, makes it very entertaining. And so these movies, like Star Wars, for instance, play upon very old tropes of mythology and bring them up to the modern era with the very interesting technology that in some ways exists and that many people would like to see exist at some point in the future. How has the importance of stars and planets to people's lives changed from the past to today? This, I think, is one of the big ones. I've touched on it already. In the past, people needed to read the sky at nighttime to navigate at sea, for instance, and it is true that humans were able to navigate the sea great distances to travel between continents and subcontinents using the sky, and that's quite remarkable. And there are maps from the past that demonstrate that people did travel across oceans and did that using the tools that they had, which were viewing the sky. Um, Today, we have other technology, and so while people who navigate the seas do learn about how to do that, they don't rely on that as the method of navigation. They have instruments and satellites that allow them to do so. Onto the topic exploring the universe. Do you think space exploration is a waste of money? Why or why not? I think there are two types here, manned and unmanned exploration. So the unmanned exploration using satellites, um, that although it does seem to cost quite a lot of money, it doesn't require that the satellite be retrieved. So there's a much greater risk when humans actually travel out into space. So I don't think there's a waste of money there. And the reason is that governments fund those projects. And I think it's very important that governments invest in this activity of exploring outer space and educating our society about what exists beyond our planet. How might humans exploit other planets in the future? This is a topic I don't know much about. There is some talk in the media even about private companies doing so. And the idea that the moon could be colonized is not to say that an other planet would be exploited, but rather that the moon of Earth could be mined. This is a very interesting idea. However, I'm not sure that is necessary. The planet we live on is so vast, and even though the natural resources are being depleted, it's very hard for me to believe that it will become possible to exploit another planet, the resources of another planet, at the same time that we are inhabiting Earth. And in fact, I don't think it would be necessary to do so until Earth becomes uninhabitable. And if it happens that it's possible for some humans to move on to colonize the moon or Mars, for instance, um, that would be a type of exploitation, but I think that's very far in the future, and from what I've heard, very difficult, if not impossible. And the final question, would discovering life on other planets benefit humanity? This, I think, is something a lot of people are invested in. They definitely want to know that other life exists. I do think it would benefit human knowledge and understanding of the world to know that there are other organisms, small or big, that exist outside of Earth. Thanks for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this speaking test. Bye.